how do you actually study the behavior or cognition in the free land of monkeys? Do you have some tools? Do you follow them, as you said? Do you use cameras or something like drones or some other techniques for following them, for example?
Yeah, so I mean, at the center is still the observation by a human person that follows them. We have handheld devices, we have programs, we have a super structured way in which we code the data. We have a manual that is about that thick, that anybody who comes and works with us, they have to understand the rules, and there's a lot of training. So first you have to ID everybody. That's the foundation, because we need to know who does what to whom. So for the adults, that's quite simple, but for the juveniles, it's kind of hellish because they all look alike. And some people are very talented. They take 2 weeks and they know everybody, and others go, on and on and on. I'm more on the slow side, but so I'm sympathetic when it takes a little bit longer. But and then they go through this training program, and we do a lot of observer reliability. So people have to pass these reliability tests before they can start collecting data independently. And so that's the core. And so we track, okay, who grooms whom? So they have this social grooming, who grooms whom, who approaches whom, who leaves whom, who aggresses whom. So with all these data, we can construct rank hierarchies, we can construct the social network, who's affiliated with whom. We can see, we can look at, for instance, maternal care, how much nursing do they provide? When do they stop weaning the infant? So for all of this, you need these observational data. But we also do playback experiments. So if you want to know how they respond to calls or what they know about one another, you can do these. You can stage social scenes basically using the playback of sounds. So you can play back an interaction between two other animals. And that interaction can either be consistent with what's going on in their society, or it can be inconsistent. So you can have something like a female is communicating, grunting to another male, and that's the male she's actually with, so that would be consistent. Or it could be a completely different male. And then the question is anyone who hears this surprised? So do they detect these deviations? And we know from the chacma baboons, they're super sensitive. So if anything is a little bit different from what it should be, they're all like, what's going on? Because it could have consequences for them. And the guinea baboons, they're kind of more interested in what they already know. They kind of have this confirmation bias. We don't really understand why, but perhaps because these animals are really gregarious. And so you see a lot of deviation. Yeah. So the statistical patterns of what can co-occur or not are probably different, or we know they're different from the chacmas, for instance. And so we do playbacks, observations. Then we have camera traps. And the camera traps, we are working on a system to recognize them individually from photos. So we can do social networks from the photos, but that's much more difficult than we thought. I was really optimistic that after 3 years or so we would have a system in place, but no, it's super data hungry. So you basically need to train the models with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos, and we don't have these photos. And then you have new baboons coming in because the system is so chaotic. It's not so great. But on the other hand, the camera traps help us to estimate the predator density. So we see, how many lions have been in the area, how many leopards have been around, and so on. So that helps us to understand their ranging patterns, where they're hanging out, and so it gives us really important information. Then we tried drones. We thought it would be so cool, to have a view from the top and then see how everybody is moving. And the baboons hated the drone. And they basically spent all day under a tree. So some juveniles sort of peeked out, but they hated it so much. And I thought, we're not going to do it. And of course, the other problem is you need to do ground truthing. Yeah. So for us, it's really always important to know who's who. And so the drone from the top, everybody really looks alike. And then how do you do the ground truthing? And so then we decided, okay, it's not worth it to try that.
And I assume you have quite a lot of contacts with the primates, right? In personal kind of, you encounter them or you observe them from kind of a distance. How does it work?
Initially, we observe them from a distance, but then the more habituated they get, you walk with them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so they're so habituated now, like this time when I was there in the morning, so you can imagine they sleep in sleeping trees. Huh? So in the morning you get up really early, it's still dark, and then you go to the sleeping tree, or sometimes when it's farther away, you drive to the sleeping trees when you know when they are. They have collars, radio collars, and we have antennas. So this way we can sort of locate them because it's unpredictable where they're sleeping. So in the morning you start actually with a location, then you go to the sleeping tree. They're still up in the sleeping tree. It's still dark. And then you hear, the and they're greeting each other, they're slowly waking up, and then they come down. And when I was there in January, it's kind of cold at night. And then they bask in the sun. So they sit by the river and they wait for the sun to come up. And so I stood there watching them, and then I noticed that one baboon tail was over my shoe. So that's how close they get.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we now really have to be careful that we don't step on them.